All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating and honestly often misunderstood ritual, reciting the creed during Mass. Now, whether you've grown up doing this every Sunday or you're completely new to the theology behind it, the source material we're looking at today frames this moment in a way that, well, it might just completely change how you view the whole thing. We're not just looking at some dusty old text here, we are exploring a deeply significant, historically weighty action. Picture the pivotal moment described in the text. The readings have ended. The word has been, as the text beautifully puts it, broken and fed to the hearts of the people. And then, suddenly, there's this massive shift in energy. The entire congregation rises to their feet. It's not an accident. There's an intense intentionality behind this physical shift from sitting to standing. Which forces us to ask the big question, right? Why do we stand, instead of just remaining seated in comfortable silence? What does this deliberate, unified standing actually signify? According to our sources, this physical movement is absolutely not just some random liturgical stretch break. It's actually a highly symbolic transition. You're moving from a passive posture of listening straight into an active posture of declaration. Section 1. Not just a recital. As the source insists, this is absolutely not a quiet, rote recital. When the church stands, she doesn't just stand in silence. She rises like an army with one voice. The creed completely transforms here, from a simple statement of belief into three incredibly powerful things: a bold pledge of allegiance, a rallying banner raised against worldly confusion, and a defensive sword of truth drawn in a time of lies. The language used here is super active, even combative, literally framing the believer as a soldier in a spiritual sense. And this aggressive, unyielding posture, it's anchored right in Scripture. The text points directly to Hebrews 10:23. We're reminded that to hold fast without wavering actually means standing shoulder to shoulder with martyrs. We're talking about people who were burned, stoned, or beheaded for making this exact same confession, I believe. It intimately connects the modern speaker to this profound legacy of extreme sacrifice. Which brings us to the next point: older than nations. The sheer historical weight this public declaration carries is kind of mind-blowing. It predates modern countries and political systems. The argument here is that when a person says the creed, it's not a private, individualized statement at all. It is a literal joining of voices with an unseen, massive army. Think about it. The apostles who walked with Christ, the martyrs of the Colosseum, the church fathers who fought heresy, and saints throughout history, you are joining a chorus that spans centuries and realms, standing in what the text calls the church's voice. Let's look at the structure itself. Every line a shield. You see, these specific words weren't just chosen at random. They were meticulously forged in the fire of theological conflict. It wasn't written in a peaceful vacuum. Actually, scratch that. It was basically written as a defense mechanism. Every single phrase acted as a literal shield against historical attacks. For instance, the line, "born of the Father before all ages," was a direct, targeted counter to Arianism. "Begotten, not made, consubstantial," was deployed specifically against those trying to deny Christ's divinity. Even the phrase, "he suffered death and was buried," served as an explicit defense against claims that the crucifixion was merely symbolic. And finally, declaring a one holy Catholic and apostolic church served as this firm reminder of unity and roots exactly when fractured groups were threatening to split the community apart. Because every single line was engineered to block a specific historical attack, the document itself is incredibly resilient. Having survived centuries of relentless ideological assaults, the resulting creed is described in the source as a fortress of truth. It has been handed down completely unchanged, deeply unashamed, and, quite frankly, fundamentally unstoppable. Moving into our final section, standing tall today. So how exactly does this ancient defense mechanism operate in today's culture? Well, the text highlights a pretty sharp ideological clash. On one hand, we face the demands of the secular world, right? There's this constant pressure to water down faith, keep beliefs strictly private, and just avoid uncomfortable topics like sin or salvation entirely. But on the other hand, we have the church's response. By standing up at every Mass and publicly declaring the creed, the church responds with unapologetic, spine-stiffening faith. The text makes it clear this isn't arrogance. It is simply declaring truth without apology. And the source notes something really fascinating here. This torch of truth actually burns brightest in the absolute darkest environments. We're talking prisons, catacombs, jungles, deserts, modern classrooms, and war zones. Across all these hostile landscapes, the creed has been whispered, shouted, sung, and signed. This transmission has often happened through immense suffering, sometimes through tears and sometimes through blood, passed down across countless generations. Today, the very act of looking forward to the resurrection of the dead is framed as an incredible act of defiance against a cynical world. By declaring these ancient words, the speaker is effectively doing three things: speaking eternal hope directly into modern despair, injecting truth right into the overwhelming cultural noise, and dropping the massive concept of eternity squarely into the middle of our fleeting, day-to-day time. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to reflect on the profound gravity of this ritual. When the congregation plants their feet and lifts this ancient sword, they aren't just reciting some old poem. The sword challenges us to recognize that angels look on with awe as believers declare to heaven, earth, darkness, and death exactly where they stand in eternity. So it leaves us with a pretty powerful question to consider. Is this just a routine part of a weekly service, or is it a timeless, unashamed declaration of ultimate allegiance?